What's up, folks? It is the Dr. Remy LeBeau, that is, here in the X-Lair to provide you with a cure to all the ailments associated with your absolute lack of exposure to the coolest X-Men statues that have ever been created. Today we have a very beautiful feature, and that is the unparalleled, uncompromising, spectacular Jean Grey of the X-Men, one of the original 5 X-Men, in her X-Factor form, as created by Bowen Designs. Very beautiful statue. Let me give her a twirl so you can get a gander at the beauty you're about to behold. Very, very nice looking statue. So this statue was released, so right now it's 2013 May. This was released maybe about a year ago now. Um, let's check out the edition size, shall we? So there were 500 of these made. This is number 384. It was actually produced in 2011, so it's almost been 2 years since she was conceived. Um, some of you may recognize the design if you've seen my Dark Phoenix statue video and blog post. Of course, those of you that are savvy collectors already know what I'm talking about. So, Randy Bowen of Bowen Designs, the progenitor of Bowen Designs, originally created a Dark Phoenix statue and a Phoenix statue about 10 years ago. Two classic pieces at this point, just beautiful. And last, maybe 2 years ago, I guess he decided to do a variant of that statue, a new variant. So this is like the third version of this sculpt of Jean in her X Factor outfit. There are some differences. She was resculpted as far as like the hair goes. I think the eyes were changed. They actually have pupils this time, as opposed to in the Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix statues, in which she does not have pupils. And the base is absolutely different. It is actually the base that was used for the Jean Grey, Jim Lee era Jean Grey statue, which I have yet to feature. So essentially, this is an amalgamation of those two original statues of Jean into a completely different design, which is a very cool design, which I'm very happy to have. This is the first of the 5 statues that have been produced in the X Factor line. So she was surprisingly put up for order a couple of years ago, um, unbeknownst to the fans that follow sort of what Randy Bowen and Bowen Designs does online. It was just sort of you know thrown out there as a surprise. We didn't know that this was going to be produced, so it was actually kind of an exciting thing. Um, and since then, we've gotten X Factor Cyclops produced, which is a variant of the original costume Cyclops statue that was released last year, which I'm actually going to feature very soon. And there's a third variant of that statue, which is the modern Astonishing X-Men version of Cyclops. So this X Factor statue, which is the second in the X Factor line, actually has 3 variants, and they're all very cool Cyclops statues. I love them all, but it goes very well with this statue, fortunately. So that's the first 2 X Factor statues. Currently, I have Archangel displayed with these two. So in my mind, that is sort of the third X Factor statue, Archangel, because pretty soon after X Factor was introduced as a comic, Apocalypse was introduced. Warren lost his wings. Warren was taken under the influence of Apocalypse and converted into Archangel, and then essentially that was Warren's form throughout most of X Factor. Most of the X Factor run, in which the original 5 X-Men were featured as the core characters. So in my mind, it's a fitting placement of the X Factor statue within that set. Of course, I'm pretty sure Randy Bowen has uh, already said that he will, or implied that he is going to produce a an original Angel statue in the X Factor outfit. So, for those that are looking to have Angel with his wings in his X Factor outfit, I'm pretty sure that statue's coming up, but it hasn't officially been revealed yet. So you're gonna have to wait for that one, folks. Luckily, two others have been revealed and have already been put up for order and are in the pipeline to be released probably in the next, you know, 3 to 6 months. We've got X Factor Beast, which is looking spectacular, which is sculpted by Mark Newman. I'm sorry, the Kucherag brothers. And there's actually three versions of that Beast statue. There's going to be a red and blue version, which is the costume that Hank donned immediately after the original costumes were switched over, like early in the X-Men series, maybe. I think it was like after issue 50. I forget which one it was. Somebody online showed me what it was. Um, so that one's on its way out, but that one hasn't been put up for sale yet. But the ones that have been put up for sale of the Beast statue are the X Factor version and the original costume version. So I have two of them actually on order, and they're both on their way, and I'm very excited about both of them because I think it's going to be a really spectacular piece. And finally, there is, of course, an Iceman statue, which is going to be very spectacularly cool. It's going to be a clear version of Iceman. He's going to have a power belt on, which is something that I think Loki gave him. Though the Avengers fans out there will know who Loki is. Loki being the brother of Thor, the main villain in the super blockbuster Avengers movie, which I'm sure everyone has seen. Um, I guess there was a point at which X Factor either somehow was involved with Asgard, somehow Iceman's powers went out of control, and this power belt was put on him in order to control his power, and it sort of reflects, you know, his look in the X Factor, in that X Factor series, that original X Factor series. So it's going to be a very like fitting uh, design for an X Factor display, and it's just going to be a very cool statue. So that one's always also on order. That was a website exclusive. There aren't going to be many of those made. I hope at least 500. I hope there's at least 500 of each of these statues. So there's at least 500 X Factor sets available to at least 500 fans out there that will eventually, hopefully, get all of them. Um, and so, but still, it's gonna be one of those. It's gonna be, I think, difficult to get in the long run. So if you're interested in that statue, if people already have it up for order on eBay, I would jump on one of those because it's looking to be very cool, and you don't want to miss out if you're looking to make the X Factor set. Um, so this is actually not the original costume for Jean. Like you can see here, um, she's wearing the green and yellow outfit there. This is X Factor number 6, the first appearance of my favorite villain, Apocalypse. Well, one of my favorite villains. My favorite villain really is Sinister. He's just such a bad guy with such an awesome design and so much prominence as far as like the evil doings of that the X-Men have to deal with, and you know, drives most of the most interesting stories that we've seen in the X canon. Um, so in this issue here, where Apocalypse is introduced, art by, I'm pretty sure it's Louise Simonson. So Louise Simonson and penciler is Jackson Guise, but the writer was Louise Simonson. So it actually, I think it might have been her husband, Walter Simonson, who drew X Factor for a while. But this guy Jackson Guise seems to be a pretty darn good artist. And so here you can see there's like more artwork featuring Mrs. Jean Grey in that outfit. Of course, eventually this all changed, and a lot of the X Factor members, you know, got completely different outfits. And then so you can see here, this is X Factor number 50. This is a cover that's actually drawn by two of my favorite artists ever, Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane. You can see here that here she is. Oh wait, there she is. Here she is in the red and and yellow outfit. So this turned out to be the sort of the next stage of her character design within X Factor, and it's this and it's the stage that obviously Randy Bowen thought was most sort of appealing to the eye, maybe. Um, as far as like what she should look like in statue form, and so that's the look he went with. I'm very happy with it. I like it. Of course, the green and yellow is nice too. Either way, it works because in the end, what's really cool about this outfit is like the enormous X that goes like across the outfit, and eventually sort of goes all along her legs and basically is emblematic of the fact that she is an X Factor member, which is related to X Men, which is as long as there's a bunch of X's everywhere, I'm super happy with that. Like that just makes me happy. So that's why these outfits are actually some of my favorites because they are just huge X's. The more X, the better. If you're an X Men collector and you're displaying a bunch of X Men statues, then the more X, the better, without a doubt. Um, all right, so let's look at this actual statue. Let me check out again. I'm pretty sure it was sculpted by Mark Newman, but I want to make sure that is the case. Let me see. Yes, indeed, sculpted by Mark Newman. So I'm gonna assume that he did the updates on the statue as well, and you can see like the hair was completely redone, and it's like super thick and wavy, which is completely different from the Phoenix statues that were made. So there was actually a lot of extra work put into this particular version of this statue, which is great because you want individual pieces to be unique and be easily identifiable in contrast to the other versions of a particular statue. So the base itself, like I said, is pretty much the base from the Jean Grey statue that Bowen Designs released, in which she is basically perched on top of it in a completely different pose, and it represents her sort of using her TK power to lift herself up, and the color I think is pink for that one, and it's not as translucent as this one, and it's a very nice piece. I'll be featuring very soon. So it was interesting that he would use that one for this statue because obviously she's not perched on top of it, but still it does sort of capture the fact that she's using her TK powers or telekinesis powers for those not in the know, of the X lingo. Sorry, folks. It's a very nice version of this base. Um, it's very translucent and it's got like kind of like glitter inside of it, which is cool. Just a little more eye candy. Always works. Always helps. And it's got like sort of like a fading effect where as you get lower down in the statue, the color becomes darker. So there was a lot of thought put into the design of this base just on its own as a variant of the original base. So that makes me happy because I was, at first I was kind of hesitant about getting the statue, mainly because I didn't want to commit to the entire X Factor set. I thought it was a little bit sort of extreme for me to get into that the X Factor statue set, given that I had bought so many statues already. It's difficult to make the decision to go even further in this hobby. So initially, actually, when it was put up for order, even though I liked it and I was excited about it, I didn't order it. And so I waited until after it was already released. And then when I saw photos of it online from other collectors, I was like, okay, I got to get this guy. I got to get this gal. She was just too good to pass up. And when I finally got her, I was just like super excited and totally regretting not initially ordering her when she was put up for order because she is beautiful. And there's just so much about her that just stands out very nicely. So I really like the matte yellow that was used on the X on her outfit in contrast to the metallic red paint that was used for the red parts of the outfit. I think it makes it look like just extra special, more special than she would have otherwise looked. I think just because it just it just adds that extra element of eye candy where it's just your eyes are drawn to like the metallic parts, but it also makes like the yellow parts stand out really nicely. So there's like there were some really nice choices made in regards to the final paint job for the statue. Um, and of course, as you go up further, you get the face. And I've got some close-ups of the face on my blog post, so check those out if you're interested in looking at some of the extra special parts of the statue. Um, in the face, they did a great job, of course, with the paint, and the paint is great all around. Um, but what does stand out is like the eyes and the mask on her face, which is something that was not on the original statue, the Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix versions. And they did a really nice job of just kind of putting that on the existing sculpt. I think unless they completely resculpted the head, which is possible. However they wound up going about it, like they did a really great job in this, and it totally makes her look like Jean in a different time, in a time where she. I mean, it's complicated because the Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix. Initially, we thought they were Jean, but it turns out they weren't Jean. Like the Phoenix Force, when it had initially um, possessed Jean, and I guess during that initial storyline where it's introduced and she goes into her body and she helps her land like that space shuttle that you could actually see really well in the that you could watch on the X-Men '90s cartoon, like the first episode of the Phoenix Saga that sort of provides a version of that story where you get introduced to the same thing, and you see the space shuttle situation and all that. I think initially what was intended to happen was uh, so okay, so she lands the shuttle in New York Harbor, and they get out and they escape and everything's fine, and then she emerges from the water as the Phoenix, and it's like this huge moment in the comics and in the cartoon. Um, but I guess what was eventually retconned um, for those moments was that she was supposed to be, I guess, put into like some sort of hibernation cocoon by the Phoenix Force, and thus all the stories following that moment um, were actually the Phoenix Force in a version of Jean's body, but not actually Jean herself. And it wasn't until after the whole Phoenix saga, the Dark Phoenix saga, the death of Phoenix, um, and years later, after Cyclops had to sort of process, the loss of Jean and all this stuff that happened afterwards, it wasn't until X Factor that Jean was found by, I think it was the Fantastic Four or the Avengers, I forget who it was, in New York Harbor, in hibernation, under the water, alive, and then she comes back and she becomes part of X Factor, and she's back in the mix with Scott and the original five X-Men, and so she's a different person then, and so it kind of makes sense to kind of make her look different here than the way that she was presented in the original Phoenix and Dark Phoenix statues, given that there is sort of that plot twist that ultimately sort of separates this Jean from the Phoenix as being one character. No, they no longer are two. They no longer are the same character. And now, in regular continuity, they are two characters. So it's definitely, it was an interesting storyline. It was an interesting plot twist, and thus it's very appropriate that this statue would be in the form that she's in. So that's pretty much as I need to talk about in regards to the statue. For those of you that haven't gotten her and are interested in getting her, I would suggest going after her now because, so I mean, she's a very nice statue and she's somewhat limited in quantities, but I think every collector has been faced with the question of whether to commit to the entire X Factor set or not, and so people have been sort of holding back, I think, on getting her. So you could still find her for reasonable prices, I think. But I think now that the other three members of X Factor have been produced and two are on the way to being released, then I think people are going to be more willing to commit to the entire set, given that it's already been released. So I think she will become more of a chase item in the near future. So if you're on the fence, get off of that fence and grab her. If you're in the future watching this video, I hope you enjoy my statue, and I hope you are able to find one eventually, but you probably won't be able to, and I'm sorry for that. I apologize. But hopefully via my stuff and other people's videos and photos and stuff, like, you're at least able to garner an appreciation for the at least the design and the execution of the statue, because indeed she is quite the beautiful piece, and I'm very happy to have her in my collection. Alright folks, that is it for this spotlight on a very beautiful statue of Jean Grey. I have many more statues to show you, so stay tuned. Thank you for checking out my blog, X-Men Statues of Future Past.blogspot.com. Thank you for checking out my YouTube video channel, Dr. Remy LeBeau, unofficially Dr. Remy LeBeau's X-Lair, and as always, X in the box because ain't nobody checking me. Hey! I'll catch you all very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.